This is the Mystic Girl Cult, a safe space to celebrate the journey to find your most magical self. No judgment, no hate, just stardust trying to find its shape. I'm your host, Amy. Get ready to be indoctrinated into the circle. Today I'm joined by two very special people. Our first guest is Jessica. She works as a flight attendant for a major U.S. airline, and when she's not flying, she enjoys baking, fashion, taking really long naps, and spending time with her hubby. As well as Stephanie Wilkie, a production coordinator for animated feature films. Let's get right into our conversation. And we're welcoming Jessica and Stephanie to the Mystic Girl Cult podcast.
Hello.
Hello. These are two of my favorite people in the entire world, and they have a lot of great stuff to share. And I'm not just saying that because they're here looking at me in the face.
Yeah.
So today we're actually going to focus on Jessica and her chosen field of life right now.
My chosen field of life. Yes, this is true.
Yes. So Jessica is a flight attendant, and she does a amazing job, actually, of balancing working that specific kind of lifestyle with being married, having a very active family life, and friends, and all of that. And you said that you hear a lot of things that negatively reflect on what people think about what you do.
Yeah, I think that we've talked about before, there's like a stigma, you know, in regards to being a flight attendant, that you are gone all the time and that you don't have a social life, that you can't be married, you can't have a family, you can't, have what is deemed normal. Because people are so used to Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, jobs.
Which is very overrated, I must say.
Yeah, like, come on, let's break outside of that. And, why does it have to always be that? But,
But also nothing against it.
There's nothing against that, too. Sorry.
Yeah,
I think that's what you do.
But there's no one way to live life. If 9 to 5 works for you, that's awesome. But if it doesn't, or you find something else that you can work into your life, right? There's no reason that that's weird.
Yeah, and I think I'm not, bashing having a 9 to 5 job, but because there is such a stigma surrounding a flight attendant lifestyle and what that entails in terms of the hours and how many days you may or may not be home. Everyone do what you want to do. If you want to work the 9 to 5, that's okay. But also the people that can't do that or don't want to do that, then that's fine too. I just hate that there are these categories. I hate that people are just getting boxed into you have to do this and the next step is this and this, where you really shouldn't be limited to going about life in a certain way.
So, for you, what made you interested in being a flight attendant in the first place? Because that wasn't where you started out.
No. I was working in retail with these two lovely ladies.
As have, I think, every person on this podcast so far.
That's how we meet each other.
Yes.
I'd worked with these two lovely ladies before, and I left where we had worked and moved on to another retail store. And I was just finding that as much as I enjoyed or,
was comfortable in?
Yeah, I was searching for more. And, I still am. I don't know if I'll ever find something that I'm oh, I could do this forever.
But you don't need to. Life is a bunch of chapters.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that's how I view it. I was okay, I'm done with my, retail chapter. Now I want to do something else. And for me, I was looking for something that really involved me interacting with people. I just didn't know what that was yet. And luckily, I had a coworker at my last retail job who works for the airline that I currently work for. And she and I became close, and she was like, hey, I work for so-and-so, they are hiring. Have you ever thought about becoming a flight attendant? And I was like, no, actually. Never ever crossed my mind. I've never thought about it. The idea of traveling for for work sounds great, but...
What did you think of flight attendants before? What was your view?
I think my idea of flight attendants was what many people think of now. Like, if you don't know much about the industry, all you think of is just someone that's just, like, flying from city to city. And it sounds like it's glamorous when, you know, not all the time is it really glamorous. I thought, like, oh, only single people can be flight attendants. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to be gone so much. But as she encouraged me to apply, she gave me more information. She told me how the lifestyle is, and I was kind of intrigued by it. And I figured, and I've always been the type of person where I'm like, well, why not? I'm going to just apply, and if it doesn't work out, then oh well, then it's not meant to be. So I applied.
Right. Yep.
And I got the job.
Congratulations. Way late.
Thanks. It was very... I'm confident enough in myself to say that, like, once I got to... There's like 3 parts to the interview. Once I got to the 3rd part, I knew in my head that, oh my gosh, I have this. Like, that's... I'm confident in myself to say that. Yeah. But when I was first starting off in the application process, I was just kind of like, oh, this isn't going to happen. Like, I'm applying kind of just to see where this goes, but it's not going to become anything, so I didn't really think much of it until I got to that 3rd interview, that 3rd step, and I was like, shit, this is real. This is real. Yeah. Oh my gosh, they just offered me the job. Oh no.
And you, like, right there you have to decide, like, is this really the choice?
Yeah, I was in another city interviewing for this job, and I was like, okay, and they were like, okay, now we need you to fill out paperwork and take a drug test, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna give them my pee.
That's how you know it's real.
Yeah, so...
Like, we've reached this new stage of commitment in this relationship right here.
And, I mean, I was never ever, like, tied down. There's not, like, a contract or anything, but it is a big step because you do give up a couple months of your life to training, so, which would mean I'd had to quit my current job. So that was.
But you get paid while you're training.
You do get paid, yes. So that was the daunting part. But I was kind of like, okay, well, you know what? I got the job. I'm gonna do it. You know, and if I hate it, then I'll stop. Like, I've never been the one to wallow in, like, oh, I don't know, like, uncertainty. I can be a very uncertain person in other aspects of my life, but when it comes to, like, maybe, like, my job or like career choices,
like, if you don't like it, you get out of it.
I never feel like I'm tied down somewhere, so if I want to leave, I'm going to leave. And if, for being a flight attendant, if I ever get to the point where I hate my life, hate the job, I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
And since I still work for my airline, that clearly means that I love it. So,
and you work for how long?
This May will be my 3rd year at the company. Yeah.
Nice.
It seems time so flies. Short and so long at the same time. Because I remember when you were training.
Yeah.
Yeah. Time flies. Get it?
Flies.
You're so funny.
Yep. Well, we found Stephanie's new career. She's going to be a stand-up comedian.
No.
Only makes airline puns.
Oh my gosh. That career would be very short-lived.
But you would have done it, and then it would have been an adventure.
Yeah.
So, you did training, and at first you were stationed somewhere else. Was that really hard? Because you were stationed in another city.
Yeah, and not by choice. When you get hired through an airline, depending on where that airline has hubs, that's where you can get base. And depending on what's available, certain hubs may be available for you to be stationed at.
Yep.
I'm from LA, and LA wasn't open at the time, so they put me in the Midwest. And that was very difficult because I am not accustomed to the weather, and I wasn't obviously accustomed to the lifestyle, so the idea of commuting to the Midwest for work was very daunting for me. And, you know, people, you know, here in LA, we're like, oh, I've got such a tough commute. I got to drive on the 405 to the 10. Yeah. And I'm like, psh.
I'm taking an X hour flight.
Yeah. I have to do the whole drive to the airport, then get on a 4-hour flight to my base. So that was a tough commute. But it was very difficult, not going to lie, the first 6 months. Probably the first year. But, you know, like with any job, you kind of get used to it and you work around it.
And your husband's also very supportive of
Yeah,
it.
very, very supportive. You know, if I couldn't be, if I wasn't able to manipulate my schedule to have time off at home, he'd come to visit me. He'd fly, and that's what's great about the job. You get flight benefits for yourself and for your spouse or your partner. So he would fly out to me, and that was also really great. So yeah.
Yeah. And so you did that for a while, but you have said that when you meet people and they find out what you do, that they have a certain idea in their head about what your life must be like, or that it's a hard life, or you must be a certain type of person to be doing the flight attendant work. And is that really hard to have people come at you that way?
Yeah, definitely. Just because you're assuming it's assumptions, you know. It's again part of the stigma, but like people assume that I'm not home all the time, that I can't have a healthy marriage, I can't have healthy relationships with my friends. But I think with anyone, you know, it's just about how you handle it. And just to dispel any rumors, I am home a lot. People think I'm like home maybe 1 or 2 days a month, and that's so untrue. Like for this month, I probably have been home for, I don't know, well over 16 days. And if you think about a normal job where you work Monday through Friday and you only have weekends off, I mean, how many days off a month is that?
It's not a lot.
2, 4,
It's like
6, 8 days?
Yeah.
Maybe.
So,
and that's like,
yeah, and that depends. Like, you might have another job or you might have other obligations, whereas, like, for me, you know, with this job, once I leave the airport, I'm done. I don't have other obligations to the company.
It's not like they're calling you up being like, Jessica, can you do this one thing while you're at home?
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, can you submit this? I mean, okay, occasionally I'll do, like, training from home, but that's like,
what,
2
watching
hours
a
of my
video
time.
and
Yeah.
And it's
selecting
also, it's not something that you're doing frequently.
Right. Yeah, so just to dispel any rumors around there, because many people, like many friends and family, think I'm just not home. They're always like, oh, when are you home next? I'm like, I've been home. Like, for the last 2 weeks, where have you been? And, yeah, it is really difficult to hear people say that because it's like annoying, but also it kind of hurts my feelings for like my own family to assume that like my marriage isn't healthy, that my relationships with my friends aren't healthy. Like, you know, it's about how you manage it, you know. I'm sure there's other flight attendants out there maybe that don't manage it and don't have healthy relationships, you know, but that's all
because for you, you
as
have
an individual
control over some of your schedule.
Yes.
Whereas there are types of flight attendants that don't.
Yes, yes, that's true. For the airline that I work for, you bid for your schedule. I am on call, or what they term reserve, for a certain amount of days a month, but for the most part I bid my schedule, and depending on my seniority level in the company, I can hold what I bid for, meaning I'll receive it on my schedule, or I might not hold it because, you know, my seniority is just so junior at the moment.
Yeah.
Like I could bid for a nice 5-day Paris trip, but am I gonna hold it? No. Not until I'm like a 40-year flight attendant, which I don't know if I'd even get to that. I'm not sure yet. I can manipulate my schedule, and most months I do manipulate it so that I can be home more, that I can see, you know, my friends, my family. I can be home to do things around the house, like laundry and clean the bathroom. Like, I'm like a normal person, like everyone else.
Yeah. You gotta do everything every other person has to do when they're home.
Yeah, exactly.
And your husband actually gets to go on trips with you sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes he does, which is a really big benefit. It's called non-revving. So sometimes we will non-rev somewhere, meaning travel for leisure. But sometimes I'll have a work trip to a destination, and the layover is long enough for me to bring someone. So I'll be like, hey, come with. So, for example, for Thanksgiving last year, I had a work trip to Kona, Hawaii, and I was like, hey, since you're off because it's Thanksgiving, why don't you come with? And he did, because that's possible, you know? Yeah. There have been a lot of positives to the job. There have also been negatives, like any job as well, but yeah, I mean, it's just, it's a different lifestyle, but...
What would you say is your favorite part about doing flight attendant things?
Oh...
Like the things that you've done that you're like, this is really cool, and I only got to do it because I chose to try out this thing.
Yeah. I don't know if there's one favorite thing I have. I actually have a couple. Maybe like 3. Obviously, the top one being the travel benefits. Like, you know, traveling is expensive, especially if you like traveling internationally. And with this job, it's given me the opportunity to travel to places that I most likely would have not been able to afford to go to. For my birthday, we went to Spain, and we saw Barcelona, Madrid. For my husband's birthday, we went to Germany, and we saw Munich and Stuttgart. And to be able to, like, save all that money on, like, the flights helped immensely, you know. And we still travel... like budget friendly. It's not like because we're saving so much money on the flight, we're gonna stay in like a 5-star hotel resort.
You walk into this manor.
Yeah, like my husband and I, we're very like adventurous travelers, and most of the time we don't stay at the hotel, and most people don't. You know, you're out there seeing the sights, so we figure, you know, find a decent place, but we're gonna spend most of our money on what we see and do. So like the excursions, exactly. So I think that's been one of my top, or one of my favorite reasons. Benefits from this job. The second, and I know this is gonna sound cheesy, it's gonna be probably, I don't know how to like really say it without sounding too cheesy, but
cheese is fine.
Cheese is delicious.
I've literally named this thing Mystic Girl Cult, which is one of the cheesiest things you can name a thing.
But I love it. It's the interactions and the experiences I have with passengers. And I know that like sounds kind of crazy because what you normally hear in the news is like
all the
negatives.
Yep, the crazy people
on planes. And it's not always like that. Sometimes I encounter people where and you have that connection with them, and you only talk to them for the flight, and then you never see them again, but being able to meet this person is really an honor. Like I flew with, like I guess, soldiers that are being sent to base, and then they're going to be deployed somewhere. And it's so interesting to see where they're going and to kind of learn a little bit about their lives and why they chose to do that, and vice versa, seeing someone that's actually coming home and their excitement, this sounds cheesy, but sometimes it makes me cry, and I start to tear up on the plane, and they're just kind of like, don't cry. And I'm like, but you're coming home, and you're surprising your family. So it's like those interactions that I have with passengers, obviously not the negative ones, but from things like that to occasionally I'll come across, and there are some sadder interactions where I come across a child traveling by themselves, and I ask them, "Oh, where are you going?" "Oh, to mom's," and I'm like, "Oh, mom's, that's cool." And then they tell me that their parents are divorced, and that you realize that this kid has been doing this flight back and forth because their parents are separated, and that's so heartbreaking to see, you know. And this kid is so innocent, doesn't know anything about it. So having those interactions with children. With some of the elderly, with people that have been on their first plane ride and are so excited when we like take off, and they have their camera out, and like my God. And I'm like, oh, please don't take a photo of me. You know, it's those positive interactions with passengers that I think have been one of my more favorite.
They make some of the things worth it because it the good experiences I've had with people have definitely outweighed the bad. Like, whenever I have a bad day, I focus on those people. And I know other flight attendants are going to roll their eyes, but that's kind of why I do this job. I like meeting people from all walks of life, from
from different places that have, you know, different opinions, have different backgrounds. You know, it's so interesting for me to see. I view it more as an honor to be able to, like, take these people to their final destination.
Yeah.
I find a lot of times I also find, like, a family member is traveling because they're going to a funeral. And when I find that out, it's so heartbreaking because you're taking them to something that's really tragic and sad. You just kind of have to, I don't know.
Help make their trip comfortable.
Yeah, you make the journey as best as you can by being sensitive.
And I think maybe getting to have that good experience of someone who's, like, showing you sympathy and, like, wants you to have at least, like, a quiet, calm moment during the flight helps make that trip and whatever you're going through right there not as bad.
Yeah.
So it's a bright spot for them as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting to see, like, people from all walks of life traveling for different reasons, whether it be for sad or for, like, happy things, and, like, trying to make their experience getting to their destination as positive as possible, no matter what the reason is for them traveling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's sweet.
And then I said I had 3, but now I can't even think of the third. I'm pretty sure the third would be the food, and I know a lot of flight attendants out there, if they're going to listen to this and be like, oh, she eats the airplane food. But yes, girl, I eat the airplane food. I don't always, but if I happen to work an international flight, you better believe I'm eating the airplane food.
I feel like international flights always have, like pretty decent airplane food. I don't know. I like it at times.
Yeah.
I mean, I have yet to experience it, so.
Yeah, if there's extra on the plane, obviously, you know, everything goes to the passengers first. I don't take food off people's plates.
Yeah.
Just walk by and just snatch a turkey leg or something.
It's like, I work here.
Yeah. And I obviously don't drink the alcohol because I'm working.
Right.
But especially for, like, our first class service, a lot of times we'll have ice cream as a dessert, and we'll have Ben & Jerry's Cherry Garcia ice cream, which, if you know me, is one of my favorite, like, flavors of ice cream. But
you're just, like, waiting.
Yeah, I'm like, please let there be an extra one. And if there is,
do you give them, like, the little teeny ones?
Yeah, they're like the little mini
baby
ones.
ones? Oh.
They come with, like, the mini spoon. It's cute.
Aww.
It's probably the food. And
That's funny.
yeah, maybe even the food that I have whenever I fly somewhere new. I like to try different hole-in-the-wall places, and especially if it's internationally, you know, why not?
Yeah.
No, take advantage of all the experience that you can.
Yeah.
So, someone listening to this, if they're not a flight attendant, and they hear about it and they're hearing what you like, they might want to do it. What would you say is the right kind of person to try it? Because you're a people person.
Yeah.
And so I think that probably is a really big benefit.
Yeah, that definitely is a...
Yeah.
I mean, you necessarily don't have to be the most outgoing person, but you're going to have to be willing to be around a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And I think a really big thing to keep in mind is you also have to be really flexible, because with this job, you're not going to have the same schedule every month. So you're going to have to be able to adapt.
Right.
And not even just that, too. Maybe where you might be based. Like, for me, in my personal experience, I was based in another city for 2 years before I got based in LA.
Yeah.
And so you have to be flexible. You have to be able to adapt. It really does help to be a people person because, yes, you're going to come across hundreds of people a day.
And you're in an enclosed space for a long time.
Yes.
And you can't get out.
Yeah, it'll benefit you to have, like, endless amounts of patience, because there are a lot of times when you just want to, like,
slam the tray table,
say something, or just, like, walk out and be like, I'm done. But you know, whenever I do have one of those moments, I'm kind of like, okay, think about the positives, and I think that goes for any job too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know, whenever you come across a challenging point in your career, in your life, in your job, or whatever, you kind of remind yourself why you do it and the positives. But yeah, definitely, if you can be a people person, please, yes. But yeah, be flexible too.
Okay. And so I know, Stephanie, you wanted some travel tips.
Yeah.
Which I think Jessica is an expert on at this point. Because I remember when you first started out, you were like, I had to learn how to not pack everything.
Yeah.
And bring like 3 suitcases.
Yes. So when I left for training, I knew in my head I was going to be gone for 2 months for training, and I was like, okay, I'm going to pack for 2 months. So I literally packed like 3 suitcases and the large suitcases too, like what you check in for training. And then I realized like, oh, I didn't even use half the stuff. Like at the end of training, I didn't really use any of it. And when I packed for my first trip to work, I realized that I didn't need most of that things. Like I just needed like PJs, my toiletry bag, and maybe a workout outfit. But yeah, it's definitely taught me a lot in terms of travel and what to pack and how to be efficient.
I'd say my first question as far as like packing stuff goes, I always struggle with packing all of my like skincare and makeup, all the fucking liquids. Okay, so and like all the rules about like what counts as liquids, and why do I still have this liquids rule? Seriously, like,
because apparently if you bring this and you put it together, it will blow up. Maybe.
It's ridiculous.
I don't know.
I think, personally. And I've actually been able to get away with packing way more liquid than I'm supposed to, depending on the airport.
Don't get yourself on a TSA list, Stephanie.
They're gonna be like, she's on a watch list now. Yeah. She overpacks her liquids. We're now gonna measure it.
Yeah, I think
it's like, oh, this is Stephanie Wilkie. Bring out the scale.
Yeah, like I definitely had like one of those like clear bags or whatever with the liquids, and like I couldn't zip it all the way because it was completely overfilled. But somehow I've been able to make it through. But because I'm like always anxious about like getting through security and making travel like as easy as possible, do you have like any like tips? Maybe even tips like people wouldn't expect, I guess, about how to like pack for that kind of stuff. Yeah,
I mean, I've always told my close friends and family, well, not even close friends, just everyone. I've told everyone to always pack on a carry-on, because you never know when you check bags if it'll make it to your final. I mean, airlines are better about that now. So when you are checking bags, obviously you go through TSA. Whatever you bring in your bag is going to be looked at closely, which means you have to bring them the
minimum
amount. Yeah. Right. It's challenging for me to kind of give you advice on this, just because I'm airline crew, so I can get away with bringing more because I go through different security like system almost. So it's not the same, and they don't look at our bags like they look at yours. So they're not like weighing our bags and stuff like that. But what I can say is, because what I find that takes up the most space in terms of liquids, when you're putting it in that plastic bag that's like a sandwich bag, it's so frustrating. What I find that takes up space are actually the bottles, right? They always take up space. So you're always trying to find like a smaller bottle or a more compact bottle. What I find works for me, and maybe doesn't work for everyone, is buying things that are in packets, and you can get them online too. So if you're not like really particular about the specific brand of shampoo and conditioner you use, you can buy packet shampoo,
like the flatter,
like the trial ones that you get that you tear.
Yeah, kind of like that. And I think you can get them like on Amazon. I've even gotten them as like samples of my like subscription makeup bags.
So now I'm just picturing someone pouring shampoo into like a Ziploc baggie and just squirting it.
Oh god.
That could be so messy. Because what I find is, for me, if I'm traveling for a long period of time, I'm gonna throw away a lot of that stuff. So it doesn't make sense to me to like travel with something that I'm gonna have to bring back home empty, and that's like wasted space to me. So I bring things that like it doesn't count for everything, but like things for like shampoo and conditioner, maybe things like toothpaste, things that you can like dispose of throughout your journey. Body wash as well. So I like to get like the packets of, and they're slim and they fold, so they fit better into the bags. Another tip is, if you can find anything that's like like a solid bar, like solid shampoo.
Yeah.
That's also a good alternative because that's not a liquid. So you can bring the biggest bar of shampoo that you want.
And you don't have to pack it in that tiny
You
little
don't.
thing.
You don't have to put it in that bag. Literally, think of that bag for just liquid. Some people put their toothbrush in there. I'm like, why? That's not a liquid.
Question.
No.
Not that anyone would ever do this, but if someone, like, if you use, like, the mineral water or whatever to wash your face, that comes in those things, if they froze it into an ice cube, does that count as a liquid?
Wait, what?
Like, say, like, you're like, you know, it will take this amount of time for this to melt.
Into
It's
solid.
a solid thing now.
Oh.
Could you go through and be like, no, see, it's a solid?
You know, I have not tested that.
I don't recommend testing that.
And while that sounds like it might work,
I'm sure they would say, like, no, because it would be melting. And
I mean, in my head, now that I think about it, that could potentially work, but it can't, you know, I wouldn't risk it because if it is over, if they do decide to
count it
as it being over the liquid limit, they're gonna toss it. So then now you don't have that anymore.
Oh yeah, it was just a thought that came in because you were talking about bar soap and how it's not a liquid. I was like, well, technically,
there's a little bit of gray area if it's a solid. So meaning if it's an ice cube. So basically freeze all of your liquids. But yeah, so I mean I've never tried that, but I mean that's an interesting question.
That's just where my mind goes.
But yeah, I would say in terms of like packing for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the little like packets is a good tip. I didn't think of, definitely.
Also, powder too. Actually, I just realized like. For example, some cleansers come in like a rice, or I don't know, not rice, I'm sorry, like more of a powder form, and then when water's added, it becomes like a like a foamy thing. You can also pack that. It literally is liquids. So if you bring like a packet of powder, I mean, label it because you don't want them thinking it's something else, but
keep it in a jar.
Keep it
not
in
cocaine, I swear.
I mean, if you try to sniff it, you'll just smell soap.
Yeah. I mean, these are all really great questions. It's a little harder for me because
you personally get some perks.
Also, I wouldn't call my ice question a great question.
I mean, you know, someone might try it, and maybe someone has, and they found a successful way to
maybe.
Well, that's helpful. Let's see.
You know, would you recommend people try all sorts of things to help packing, whether it's like the decompressing air things or the packing cubes or whatever. Do you think that's necessary, or do you think that you could do it easily without that?
I personally think packing cubes are awesome. Some people don't use them, but I like having things separate. It's just how you pack them. You know, you can have a packing cube, but if you don't pack it correctly, then it's going to be wasted space.
Right.
You know, you're not using the packing cube to its
full potential.
Full potential. So, I always say to roll your clothes, depending on the type of clothing. Obviously, if it's a big leather jacket, you can't roll that. I do say wear your heavier pieces. So if you are packing a bigger leather jacket and you're like, I don't know, your Ugg boots, wear those things. I mean,
and be the fashion star of the airport.
Be the fashion star of the airport. You know, whatever's the heaviest, wear. And you know, it's colder on planes, so it benefits you to have like thicker layers anyways. And if you get warm, you can take it off and put it in the overhead bin, or you know, hold it in your lap.
Right.
But yeah, with packing cubes, definitely roll your clothing, your shirts, your pants. I find that you can fit more into a packing cube, and the more organized you are, the easier it is when you unpack too.
Right.
You know?
To find your things.
Yeah, you're not like rummaging to the bottom of your suitcase trying to find your underwear. You know it's in this cube.
Yep.
Right.
I think being organized in that sense, and just being mindful of using every pocket and every little spot.
Do you have any tips for just getting, and I know that you get to go a different way because you're staff, but getting just through the airport? Like, it can be an event.
It can, especially, it depends, and also, you could be in a specific airport that requires you to, like, go out of one terminal and go into another and take a shuttle and do all this and this. I always say give yourself time, and people don't listen to me when I tell them this. And then they tell me, I missed my connection. I'm like, I told you, give yourself time.
Yeah.
Like, if you, just because you're booking 2 flights and there's 30 minutes in between, you're like, oh, cool, a short layover.
Yeah.
You can't count on that.
Yeah, you can't count on that always happening, because there are delays there. You could be late coming into the gate because the gate is still occupied because the plane before you is delayed and you're not necessarily delayed.
Right.
You have to really give yourself time. Always have like a buffer. And I say, in terms of showing up to the airport for your first flight, give yourself at least 2 hours, if not more. You know, it's, again, easier for me because I have parking at the airport and there's a shuttle for me to get on. But, you know, you need to park your car. You need to get all your family together. You need to check your bags if you have luggage. And this is why I say don't check bags. You know, if you can travel lightly because that eliminates one step in that process. Now you can take that off your list of things to do and go straight into
And you don't have to wait at the end for the carousel to go around.
Yeah.
I will say, I waited 2 hours because I landed somewhere that it was raining and they couldn't deload the plane, so we just had to sit there and wait for the thing. So if you don't have to check a bag, don't do it.
Yeah.
Because, oh man, it could be anything.
It just leaves room for, or opportunity for your bag to get lost, for it to get delayed, for it to get sent somewhere else, and that it just saves you time too. You don't have to go to the carousel, like you said. You don't have to go to the check-in counter. So you go straight to TSA. So definitely showing up to the airport early. Now, if you have a multiple flight day in between flights, I always say give yourself at least an hour minimum. If you can give yourself more than that, please do. Yeah. Because again, you can be delayed going in, and you might have connection.
Yeah, like I once had to like basically run from one end of the airport to the other.
Yeah, and that's not fun.
No, it's not.
And it's
stressful.
so stressful.
It's much better to have to wait a little bit than to miss your flight.
Yes,
totally.
Exactly. And that's true.
And there's not like there's like there are things to do. They have stores, and
yes,
it's expensive, but
you can browse.
Yeah,
like,
you can also
if you're a window
browse.
shopper, galore.
Exactly. And honestly, like you said, it's better to wait than to miss, because let's say you do miss, now you're wasting even more time.
Yep.
And now you're going to
figure out how to get another flight.
Yeah.
You have to wait for that flight.
I am notoriously bad at like being punctual, and I definitely missed my flight.
Oh no.
And like I got there like 5 minutes before the like boarding time or something.
Oh, shoot.
And so I definitely missed it. They're like, you are here too late, and I'm like,
oh yeah.
So I had to wait for the next flight, and also because of my luggage, so I had to like check luggage because I brought too many liquids, so I had to like, it had to go on to the next flight instead, because the flight that I was going on to was already too full. So when I landed, I had to wait for the next flight to land for the baggage claim. Yeah, it was a nightmare. And so, you know, like I basically went against all of your tips.
It's also, you never know what's going to happen when you're going through security and scanning, because the randomest things can set it off. And so when we were flying back from Florida from visiting my family, we almost missed our flight because for some reason, and I really should see a doctor about this, this specific spot will always come up as like needing to be rescanned. No matter
on
what
your
I
body,
do. Yes.
Because we can't see. Like.
Yes. I am gesturing to my lower hip area, and it's just like this very specific spot, and I don't know if it's because it's not like pockets and it's not whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's my own terror to think about, but you never know what's gonna make something happen, whether it's something you're wearing, something that you forgot in your pockets, or people in front of you.
Or you could just be a random too. They call it random, so they select you randomly. And then you have to go through a little bit more of the check, the physical check. They might take you somewhere and like pat you down.
I have been a random before.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. And actually, flight attendants do get randomed. We that's what we call. We get random too, because they don't want us to take advantage of the fact that we can bring bigger size liquids and such. So they every now and then do random checks to make sure we're being compliant. But yeah, no, that's so true. You can never account for, like, for instance, one time I was traveling somewhere and I was bringing a present for someone, and it was a candle. Oh, and hey, by the way, you can travel with candles because it's a solid.
Nice.
And I brought the candle through, and my bag kind of was like beeping, so they took it aside and they saw it was a candle, and then they were like, okay, we have to test this now. And I'm like, but it's a candle. I mean, the x-ray says there's nothing in it, just it's a candle, I promise.
Yeah.
But I mean, it took an extra 20 minutes because they had to do an extra little test on it. It's like a little swab thing to make sure there's no whatever.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, you can never really account for what can happen.
Yeah.
So giving yourself sufficient amount of time, whether it be showing up to the airport, or just time in between flights, because you, like I said, you can never know what will happen. You know, there could be a delay. You could divert. There could be so many. There's so many variables. It's hard to say that everything is going to happen smoothly and be perfect.
Yeah. It's like you have to think about what could be the worst possible things to happen, like delay wise, and just control the one thing you can, which is the plane is not going to take off early.
Yeah.
So
sometimes a few minutes early.
Maybe. But like if you plan and you have 30 minutes and you can't tell when your flight is going to get in, but you can pretty much plan that your flight is going to take off at this point.
Yeah.
And that you need to be there X amount before.
Right.
So plan for that. So if you get in at 2, know that the least amount of time you need is 30 minutes to get from one place to another. So give yourself an hour so that if you know that you might get an hour delay, you still have that X amount of time.
Yeah, giving yourself that buffer. That's.
But I'm also notoriously early.
Yeah, you are, and that is a really good quality to have too.
Yes.
I struggle with that.
I mean, I'm happy to wait the amount of time that was my fault for being early.
That was your fault.
Okay, so like I will get somewhere and I'll be an hour early, and I'm like, well, I know that like professionally early is maybe like 15 minutes. I'm happy to sit or do whatever for this other set of minutes because I would rather be early and sitting than late because I panic really badly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a fun feeling. I experience it all the time.
I've experienced it before. It teaches me to not do that. That's why I set so many alarms.
I have not learned my lesson still.
We love you anyway.
Yeah, I still struggle with it too. It's funny is because I'm sure all my friends, family know that I am also like you, Stephanie. I am notorious for being late to things, but it's really interesting with this job. I'm never late. And if the one time that I was maybe late to sign in for this job, it wasn't my fault. It was weather. And then this was when I was based in the Midwest, and there was like snowstorms, so it wasn't held against me. But yeah, it's a struggle for me, like day to day, show up early on time, and so like sometimes I don't even heed my own advice. So don't worry, we all struggle, but we're trying. We're trying.
Yeah.
That's what you can know about life.
Yes,
just
trying.
I have another travel question, my last one, I suppose. Is there a city that you would recommend as a good like travel destination that most people wouldn't normally go? Like, you know...
Do you mean like domestically or internationally?
Anywhere, internationally. It could be domestic too if it is, if it
or
happens.
both.
Yeah.
You can have categories.
Yeah.
Okay.
One for each.
I like categories.
And we're saying domestic as in the U.S. because that is where we are based.
Yes.
If you are in Europe, your domestic is somewhere else.
yes. So for me, domestically, yes, it is here in the U.S. Internationally, meaning Europe and so forth, Asia and South America.
And everywhere not.
Yeah, everywhere not here. So domestically, oh my gosh, you know, I get asked this question a lot, like what is like, the question usually is like, what's your favorite city or what's your favorite layover? And I usually kind of look at them like, I have a bunch.
Well, mine is not just your favorite, but like one that most people wouldn't expect or wouldn't like typically go to.
A hidden gem of a place.
Yeah.
Hidden gem.
Diamond in the rough.
A diamond in the rough. Okay, well, again, though,
Maybe it's harder.
this might be difficult because the positive of this job is I get to lay over in so many cities that I get to see like a city and experience it for just a day or two. Mm-hmm. And usually when I do that, I'm like, hey, I'm only here once in a blue moon. I might as well go and do fun things or interesting things. I'm not going to do what I normally do when I'm home. So I usually try to find interesting things to do, like museums, go to like interesting places that are recommended to me, like restaurants or bars. I think one that really stands out would probably be Seattle, and I say this because I've been there many times, so I've had the opportunity to see many things there. And Seattle's a place that many people like are familiar with. Maybe have been. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have, but
I have not.
Personally, for me, it's one of my favorite cities to lay over in. There's just so much to do. We stay downtown, and there is a lot to do. And what I look for in a city whenever I'm traveling, like I'm non-revving, so it's for leisure. I look for one that has really good public transportation because I like to take public transportation in another city because it helps me see the city more and get a feel for its vibe. And with Seattle, it has really great public transportation. So if you decide to take like a weekend trip to Seattle, it's totally doable, and you don't have to rent a car. You can actually take the train directly from the airport to the downtown area, and from there you can see so much. You can see the Space Needle. You can do the public market. You can see the original Starbucks. You can,
Actually, our future president.
What's that?
The guy who made Starbucks wants to run for
Oh,
president.
he does?
What?
I did not know that.
Yep, the Schultz man.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
that's
Okay.
But that's another conversation
topic
for a
another
different
day.
day.
Oh, gosh.
I did not know that. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Why can't like real politicians actually?
Because they do, but that's not news.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That is true.
Yeah.
But let's not
Anyways,
crowd this
another-
with politics.
Yes, you can cut as much of that out as you want.
But yeah, Seattle's probably one of the cities that I know it's not like a hidden gem in the sense that like, oh, I've never heard of Seattle before.
Right, no.
But it's such a great city. Like there's so much to see and do there, and it's easily accessible. It's a quicker flight from LA than
for us West Coast people.
we're on the West Coast, so you don't have to really worry about like time zones and such.
True.
It's a shorter flight. There's so much to do, and like because it's a downtown area, the I don't know the vibe you get. There's a lot of people walking around all the time. There's really great shopping, and I know this because I shop a lot. And that's actually another thing too. Whenever I go to a new city, I always see what their shopping is, whether it be just their regular mall area, if it's a good one, to like boutiques. I like finding like that Main Street area that has a bunch of little boutiques and cafes and bars and restaurants, because I find that you see a lot of the authentic like life from the city or from that town.
Is there a favorite small business, whether it be a coffee shop, a boutique store, or like that in Seattle that you would recommend going to that maybe someone wouldn't be able to find unless they looked it up?
Well, okay. Well, maybe I don't see things now. Oh my god, I can't remember the name of it. But if you go to the public market, and while Seattle's known for really great restaurants and food being like a foodie place, at the public market they have like the stalls that you can order food from. And I can't remember the name of it, but if you happen to eat meat, there's this stall there that makes really great brisket, and it's so cheap. And a lot of people are like, oh, I want a nice sit down restaurant. I'm like, no, like get your food and go. You can sit outside and enjoy like the view of the ocean, and it's just so pretty, and you can see like the ships coming in and such. I can't remember, but it's in the public market.
If you think of it, I'll add it in like to the notes, or
Yes.
I'll add it in post.
Yes, I am gonna now look it up because I'm like, what was it called? But anyways, I always find like getting food in like smaller, like whether it be like one of those stall kind of like what do you call that? Like
A food stand?
like a food stand, yeah. you can sometimes find like food trucks and stuff like that. I always find it so interesting to get food from there because that's like what's popular there, and you might not be able to necessarily get it back home.
Yeah.
Or, as opposed to eating at your like, Olive Garden down the street.
Yeah.
Which is also good.
Cheap in breadsticks.
Yes.
Endless salad and breadsticks. So in Seattle, I would have to recommend that place if I can ever remember that name.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, that's cool because I didn't even know that Seattle had decent public transportation. I mean, I would have never guessed.
Yeah, and
so definitely gotta check that out.
The big thing for me for traveling is saving money. So if I can cut down on expense in terms of like a car rental, I definitely will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're saving money in that sense, but you're also just getting to see more when you take the train from the airport to downtown.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you see so much. It's probably, I want to say, like a 30 to a 40-minute train ride.
It's not bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad, actually.
I mean, that's not bad for people who know what commuting is like.
Yes.
Yes.
Compared to other places, and it's like, I mean, it has like any train or any bus, it stops along the way, but it's direct. It's not like you have to get off and get onto another, and get off and get onto another line. It's direct. So you don't have to worry about like getting lost. Get on the train, get off once you get to downtown Seattle, and then from there, explore. They've got, there's so many places. I'm like now remembering a place that had like really good waffles. Again, I can't remember the name, but if I do, I'm going to tell Amy so she can link it. But ooh, man, there's so much good food. Another place also in the Northwest is Portland that I really enjoy, and I think is a hidden gem. I mean,
people know it, but I don't know how many people actually go there for things.
Yeah. And it kind of like what I've mentioned with Seattle, like in terms of being like a foodie capital, Portland is too. You can get such great food there. And the vibe is kind of similar to Seattle in the sense that
they seem like rainy coffee towns.
Yes. Rainy hipster coffee town.
Yes.
And what's nice is just outside of the city is all this nature. So if you are an outdoorsy person, you can go on some really great hikes.
True.
You can go and take the ferry across and see, like, in Seattle, you can go across the water and there's, like, this, like, island you can go to. There's so many things to see and do it. And they're very, like, artsy cities, too. A lot of museums. A lot of street art too, so I think that's really fun to see as well.
Awesome.
Cool. Would you have any recommendation for somewhere that's international?
Ooh, internationally.
Yes.
Okay, hidden gem. Yes.
What Stephanie really wanted to know.
Well, I mean, I love travel and want to travel more, so I'm
Same.
open to
I've
all
done
of
very
it.
little in my life, so eventually.
Well, I will have to say though, in terms of the cities that I've traveled to, whether it be for work or for leisure, they have been like bigger cities, so they're not necessarily the hidden gems.
What would you say is the one you've enjoyed most that's easy for native English speakers to visit and people who maybe don't travel a lot? Does that make sense?
Yes. I would have to say, I mean, obviously, if you want a place that speaks, English, prominently, that's their main language. Then obviously, you're gonna want to go to like Britain.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to explore more of Europe, I would say places like Amsterdam, Paris, and the bigger cities in those countries. Like in Germany, the bigger city would be like Munich and what's the other one? Berlin. Yes. So when you're going to the bigger cities, obviously they know tourists are coming, so they're gonna speak English. Yeah. One of my favorite ones to travel to, and I find myself going back to like time and time again, is Paris. And the reason is it's for me is really easy to fly into. The airline that I work for has a lot of flights to Charles de Gaulle in Paris. So it's easy for me to get to, one. Two, like I mentioned with Seattle, the public transportation is so easy. Like, I can't stress how important public transportation is if you're traveling and you want it to be easy, you want it to be, like, budget-friendly. Utilize public transportation. People always are scared of it, so they tend to like stick to one place or stick to like a closer destination because they're afraid of public transportation, of getting lost in a foreign country.
Right.
And I would have to say Paris has really great public transportation, and again, you can take it directly from the airport, so you're not having to
find your way somewhere to get to.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, be smart, be savvy, you know.
Yeah.
Travel lightly because you're going to be walking through, you know, like subway stations and such. But I would have to say Paris has a really great like underground like subway system, and it takes you everywhere. Like you don't have to pay for a taxi or Uber. Like it literally takes you to the Eiffel Tower, to here and there. I went with a couple friends, and that's all we used, public transportation. Nice. And we would take the train from the city to the Disneyland that they have there.
Yeah. Disney Sea?
Disney, I think that one is
that might be
in Hong Kong. Yeah. No, it's just the Disneyland Paris, I think.
Okay.
Which is outside of the city, and everything is like easy. Like I don't know how I can like really stress that enough, but you know, if you are familiar with using Google Maps on your phone, then you will know how to navigate.
Yeah, it's true. Like, 'cause that's a good point. Because even when I was in Budapest, depending on how you want to be. Google Maps really was my friend.
Yeah.
Like, even though I didn't really know Hungarian, I mean, I tried to learn a little bit basic Hungarian from like Duolingo and Google Translate. But even though I didn't know it at all, I used Google Maps and was able to get around like fairly easily. And they have public transportation as well, which was pretty helpful. Definitely.
I find that Europe has better public transportation than we do.
I believe it.
Like, I wish our public transportation was on their level. Like, here in LA, that would be so helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a very large car industry.
We do. And it's so spread out here that the idea of, like, now creating all those underground tunnels for, like, a new subway system would be impossible.
But we have, like, the metro where it does go is actually really decent.
It is helpful.
It just doesn't have a reach.
Yeah, it just doesn't get
very
much further
specific
out.
to the valley directly to downtown LA rather than like going more towards like even Santa Monica has like
the Expo line.
Yeah, and it goes a decent way towards Santa Monica to Long Beach. Like it goes decently, but the weird thing is doesn't help anyone who doesn't live in California to understand it doesn't go to like Burbank and Glendale.
Yeah,
no.
Which is so weird. It goes to like I'm not gonna say where I live. It goes to me and it goes to like other random points, but it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I remember when I used to live in Glendale and I didn't have a car the first year that I lived out in LA. It was really hard to get out.
I remember you telling me like I didn't catch my bus.
Yeah, and like the bus system is like really unreliable. Yeah, the bus system was really unreliable because LA has bad traffic.
Yeah,
and so like the metro doesn't get as far as Glendale or Burbank, so I had to depend on the bus system in order to get out of Glendale, and it was awful.
Yeah, that's so frustrating.
Yeah.
So public transportation, if it's good, use it.
Use it, and that's why, I mean, most European cities really do have good public transportation. For me, though, one of my favorites has been Paris, and what I really like about Paris is from there, you can take the train to literally anywhere. You can go take the train to London if you want to.
Ooh.
You can take the train south if you want to, or east. You can go outside of the city, and because it's such a big tourist hub, you can go on those inexpensive day tours that take you to like Versailles, that take you maybe to the French countryside, and then still be back. So I think there's just so many options, so much to see. Like you really can't just see it all in one trip. I don't think you can ever really see it all. There's so much to experience.
I bet.
That, and then one of my other favorites that, not necessarily a hidden gem, but because everyone's heard of it, but I really enjoyed flying to Barcelona. And same thing, had really great public transportation, but I looked for cities that had a lot of options in terms of excursions leaving the city. So with Barcelona, we took excursions to leave the city, and they had a great array of them. You could go see the monastery. You could go to the beach area. You can go north and see more of like the coastal towns. And I think a lot of people don't realize that they get stuck in just staying in one spot and seeing like the main sites rather than thinking of like taking public transportation or booking like a they're really inexpensive tour to like an outside
and they're
excursion.
a little bit better than what you would get when you come to LA and do like a Star Tours.
Yeah.
That's not, because I think a lot of times tourists, that's what they think when they see these tours. It's not like you get to see all these sites. It's, we're going on the Star Tours and we're going to just like drive past everything.
We're just going to drive past and look to your right. That may or may not be George Clooney's second home. You know, it's actually it's filled with a lot of history, and a lot of times you get off these tours, like off the bus or whatever you might be traveling on, to walk around these towns. They give you like leisure time. So yeah, I always say to look for cities that offer that, because then you get to see more of the culture and experience more, like get more bang for your buck. You know, if you're gonna go out of the country, see as much as you can. Like that's why I've never understood someone leaving the country just to stay at a resort. Within reason, though, if you're going to the Bahamas, yes, okay, stay on the resort because it's probably beautiful. But if you're going to like a European city, like I don't see the point in spending all day in a hotel that you're overpaying for when you could see such beautiful things right outside your door.
Well, because like with the Bahamas, the experience a lot is the visual.
It's the visual,
it's the hanging out in that
and the beach and the soft powdery sand.
Whereas going to somewhere like Paris or London is about experiencing the big culture. Not that the Bahamas doesn't have culture. But a big draw for that is the other part of the experience.
Yeah, there's so much to see. You have to kind of leave.
Do you have any just like bullet points of what people think about what they expect of your lifestyle versus what it is that you would like to make sure they leave here understanding?
There are so many, myths. But we'll bust some myths. Okay, Mythbusters. Okay,
one of us needs a mustache.
Yes, we do. I would have to say a big myth is that I'm not home enough. And believe me, I am home a lot. Sometimes I'm like, dang, I'm home so much. I probably should work more.
You're home more than I'm home.
I'm home a lot. And I find myself like sometimes sitting at home being like, wow, I feel so unproductive. I've probably cleaned the bathroom 3 times today. And I need to go do something. And then I end up just picking up a trip on my off days. So I am home a lot. I get to see my husband a lot. And we spend so much time together. And not that I want to like be away from him and have time away from him. To the people that think that I don't get to see him, I do. With my friends and family, it's all about like, you know, putting it in like technical terms, like scheduling it. You know, like just like today, we were able to schedule this. We were all available, and we were able to see each other and hang out. So it's being mindful of my time and my schedule, and if I can see people, I will. Another thing is that another myth that I want to bust is that the lifestyle is glamorous, and that all I do is fly to these exotic destinations, and that I get to drink Mai Tais on the beach. And while I get to do that a lot because those are the trips that I bid for, and I try to get, like I really, really try to get, because personally for me, I'd rather go there than to the snow. So, it's not always glamorous. I share a lot of my photos from these trips on, you know, Instagram, social media. And so you only see that. So you only see that part of the job, that part of the lifestyle. So people assume that that's all I do and that it's so easy for me and that I'm like on vacation 24/7 and that
they forget it's an actual job.
It's a job, and yes, exactly. I encounter so many interesting characters. Again, there's some really great people and that I have really treasured meeting, but there's some really terrible people too, okay?
Yeah.
Let's be real. And I still have to deal with them
It's
with
still
a smile.
It's a service.
It's a service job, yeah, and I still have to deal with them with a smile on my face, and that's very difficult, you know? And so it's not glamorous, okay? I'm gonna just tell you now, half the time I'm gonna have to deal with like poop. Poop, I was gonna say the other word, but poop on the floor and someone dragging that through the aisle, and then I'm like, great, now I have to clean that up. Yeah, is that glamorous? No.
Nope.
You know, there's so many things where I have to deal with people upset with me because the flight's delayed, and they're upset with me and it's not even my fault, but I understand their frustrations, and I have to do my best to calm them. You know, sometimes I get sent to the middle of nowhere and I lay over for 10 hours. I only sleep 4 of those hours. Like, it's not always me on a beach. It's not always me in Paris or Tokyo.
Yeah.
You know, I'm also in small towns, and I don't sleep, and I don't eat, or I eat very poorly because I eat all the junk food that they have on the plane. It has, like, sweets or chips. Like, that's... my name's on it. So it's not glamorous, you know. There are some really great perks to it, and obviously I share what I want you to see, you know, what I enjoy about the job. Obviously, I'm not going to post a photo of the shit that I found on the floor, you know.
I mean, that would be a very different Instagram than the one that you're curating.
Yeah, I'm curating a more... Honestly, it looks like a more glamorous lifestyle on Instagram and in my photos than what it actually is. To be honest, that's the truth. Who shares the negative sides? That, you know, very rarely do you do that.
Yeah. No, it's a scrapbook of the parts that you love.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's not as glamorous as people would believe. Also, I guess another maybe myth to dispel, or like stigma that people think a lot of flight attendants deal with is infidelity. Like having I come across so many people that are so shocked that I'm married and are like, oh my god.
I think that has to do with a lot of media representation of flight attendants, because if you look at a lot of things that have it, whether it's movies, TV, what have you, it's always they always appear like swinger lifestyle.
Right. Yeah. And I see where that comes from. And honestly, sure, there are people like that in the industry, but for the most part, no, not everyone's like that. There are so many families and people with husbands, children that have been, you know, married for, you know, X amount of years and have had successful relationships. So in terms of that rumor, no, I don't fly to different cities and sleep with random people. No.
You don't have a man in every city.
No, I don't. I'm sure maybe if other people do, that's on them, but me, no. And I don't ever plan on having something like that. But I'm sure that can be a challenge for other people, but personally for me, I don't struggle with that because I'm confident in my marriage, and I wouldn't do that.
You love your hubby.
I love him. He's awesome. But a lot of people, even people in my own industry, ask me, how can you be married? Isn't that difficult? And I'm like, no, it's like anything. You work at it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't just show up, you know, back home and I'm like, okay, now we're married again. You know,
it's not like you're like, peace out. I'm on vacation from us.
Yeah, we're always married. You know, whether it be we're always married, obviously. You don't take a break. So, you know, whether it be making sure I'm always in contact with him, if we can FaceTime every now and then, to sending him photos of what I might be doing and him vice versa.
Yeah.
But I even have people in the industry ask me, like, isn't that difficult? Or even further than that, they're like, oh, wow, you probably can't really have a family, like, in terms of children. I'm like, who says I can't? I can do whatever the hell I want.
Just because you think you couldn't,
right,
doesn't mean that you can't.
Exactly. And so many people think that you can't have like a healthy marriage, healthy relationship, have what they deem normal like family life back home, and that's not the case at all. I've come across hundreds of flight attendants that are not only married but have multiple children at home, like tons of little babies, and I'm like, and I even wonder, like, how do they do it? But everyone just balances and manages it. It's something they work towards. You know, obviously if you're a newlywed couple, sure, this job can be very difficult because you might not want to be away from your partner for too long. And yes, that's a struggle, but again, you work at it. Or if you just had a baby and you don't want to leave your baby for a 2-day trip for work, obviously that's difficult, but you work at it.
Yeah.
But there's all these rumors about infidelity. The scandal. Everyone wants to know about something scandalous, and honestly, my life is so boring when it comes to that. There's no scandal.
To me, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's why would you go for it to make your life more difficult?
Right. I don't want that at all. So, yeah, that's probably one of the questions that gets asked the most whenever someone finds out that I'm a flight attendant. They always say something along the lines of, wow, how do you manage being married, though? And I'm like, what do you mean? I just am.
Yep.
It's something that you just make work, with anything. Even if I wasn't a flight attendant, you make it work.
Yeah.
So one, I am home a lot. 2, it's not as glamorous as it may seem, even though there are a lot of positives, and I am grateful for those opportunities and those all those perks. Yeah. And then 3, in terms of the infidelity, no. For me personally, that's not an issue. I'm very confident and monogamous in my own relationship, and I intend on having kids in the future, and I will make it work. If it ever came to the point that it didn't, and I was starting to feel like it was too much for me to handle, like I mentioned at the beginning, I will leave. It's not, I don't feel tied down, and that's what a lot of people forget too. If it started to affect any of my relationships negatively,
you're a family first, people first person.
Yes, definitely. And I kind of want to remind people that. But, aside from that, I enjoy my job. It has really great perks. Yes. There are a lot of bad days, whether it be delays or rowdy passengers. Sometimes even rowdy crew members. Sometimes they're a little too much to handle, and you're kind of like, oh. But I love it regardless. It's to me, I like having something new every day, something different. And I think that's what I struggled with my previous jobs. It was the same thing every day, and I wasn't passionate about what I was doing before.
Right.
Now I'm realizing maybe my passion more so is interacting with people. So if I ever pursue anything else in the future, it's going to be about people. It's going to be about helping people or interacting with people. But I like that I have the opportunity to kind of change it up. Every day it can be a different experience. I can choose for it to be a good day, or I can choose for it to be a bad day. And let me tell you, I choose the good. Sometimes the bad happens and I don't want it to, but I make it work for myself. And I try my best to stay positive.
I think that's a really good message, because I think a lot of people can apply that to any part of their life, trying to balance work and all that, and know that whether you have a steady 9 to 5 or an all over the place kind of schedule, it's what you make of it.
Yes, it's what you make of it. And don't ever have someone tell you there's a set way to do things. You can do it your way. You're this might sound cliche, but it's your journey. It's not theirs. Do what makes you happy. Don't do it to really please others,
And don't try to make yourself fit the shape that someone else is telling you to try to fit. Whether it's a stigma of having to have a normal job, or having to fit the idea of what job you have.
Yeah, exactly.
It does not need to happen.
It doesn't. No, we shouldn't categorize ourselves in that sense. We should allow ourselves to be open to being who we want to be, as long as we don't hurt others and ourselves. Why not? I've always thought that. But
you do you, girl.
You do you, girl.
And on that note, the surprise that I said that you weren't allowed to know. So, my tradition for ending an episode is to do a howl to the universe to release.
Oh.
Yes.
A howl?
I mean, it can be a soft howl if that's what you need. But it's a good way to just release everything.
Yeah, I like that too. It's like shouting from the top of your lungs at the top of a mountain. That's one of those.
Yes.
Things.
I just happen to like wolves.
Oh!
So
I think it goes really well with, like, Mystic Girl.
I agree.
All right. Okay.
Gotta run with the wolves, man.
Yeah!
Alright, so on the count of 3.
Wait, are we all doing this?
Yes.
At the same time.
It's
Wait.
all at the same time.
Okay.
Oh my god.
All right.
Wait,
Hey.
hold on. I'm thinking of what I would do. Okay.
I mean,
It's probably just gonna come out how you would imagine it.
alright, ready?
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Yay!
Wow.
Cues. Soft clap.
Soft clap to Faith. Thanks again to Stephanie and Jessica for coming on to the Mystic Girl Cult podcast. They are 2 of my very best friends, and I cannot thank them enough for supporting what I'm doing. I couldn't ask for better people in my life. Thanks for joining in our circle. Mystic Girl Cult is a bi-monthly podcast. The rest of the time, we're out running with the wolves. You can keep up with me on all social media with @Amariebythesea. Until next time, stay magic.